This week, Liam Mayron, Staff Product Manager at Fastly, joins us to discuss generative AI security implications and protecting web applications. In the security news, a cross-platform post-exploit red teaming framework. Cover your backups. Your voice should never be your passport. Time to change your fingerprints. A drop in the bucket sucker. Thor will take out those pesky drones. Never give your AI friends money. Bye-bye pie for a while anyhow. Bug bounties are broken. You say you want people to update routers. Not too safe boot. Mystery microcode. Cisco listens to the podcast. I think they heard about it from Microsoft. Will it run Doom? Your server is bricked permanently. Hell never ends on x86 and Coldplay lyrics in your firmware. All that and more on this episode of Paul's Security Weekly. This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network. Broadcasting live from G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island, it's the show where exploits run wild, packets aren't the only things getting sniffed, and the cocktails flow steady. It's Paul's Security Weekly.
Business Security Weekly is recorded on Mondays at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Each week, we address the challenges facing CISOs through our guest interviews, including former and active CISOs. Our news segment is focused on leadership and communication to better help security leaders translate and communicate security risks into business risks. Jason Albuquerque, Ben Carr, Tyler Robinson, and others add their expertise to the conversation. I'm Matt Alderman, and I hope you search for Business Security Weekly in your favorite podcast catcher and subscribe to download our latest content.
Welcome, everyone, to Paul's Security Weekly. Coming to you in super low definition compliments of Darth Vader himself. It's episode number 786, being recorded on May 24th, 2023, right here in G-Unit Studios in Rhode Island. Remotely, I have our illustrious co-host, Miss Mandy Logan, is here with us. Mandy, welcome.
Hi, thank you. How's it going? Are your glasses sufficiently dirty in studio for this evening's?
Yeah, actually, my drinking glasses are dirty, and my eyeglasses are also kind of dirty too. So I need some 80% alcohol wipes for my glasses, Mandy.
You do. I feel that. I mean, I think having alcohol wipes around is imperative to getting through the day.
Yes, and green M&Ms in the candy dish, and only
green M&Ms and 5 green Skittles, because you got to keep it interesting.
That's it. Mr. Sam Bound is here with us. Sam, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you.
Aaron is here with us. Where is Aaron hiding? I haven't set up my TVs. Aaron Leland is here with us somewhere. There he is. What's up, Aaron?
Hey, Paul. I'm good, Paul. Thanks for sending me in a 10-hour rabbit hole of the LinkedIn sphere today. And I think in the same way that as soon as you can sort of print hello world on Python, you're a coder. Today, I'm a hashtag influencer due to you.
I told you, just need to sign up for Paul's social media success course. That's all it is. All payments can be made in bourbon or whiskey or of any kind. It's fine. It's fine, except for Jim Beam. That's
let's get that on you.
I have a relevant one-liner here. Actually, let's read it. An SEO expert walks into a bar, bars, pub, tavern, public house, Irish pub, drinks, beer, alcohol.
I love it. I love it. Oh boy. All right. Quick announcements. Register for Identiverse at securityweekly.com/Identiverse using code IDV23-SW20 for a 20% discount. I will be keynoting the upcoming RVASec conference on June 14th. There are still seats available, so go ahead and register, and I will see you there. Liam Mayron is a staff product manager at Fastly, where he focuses on security. He's held a variety of roles at Logarithm, Akamai, and Harris Corp. Additionally, he was an assistant professor at the Florida Institute of Technology, where he created the Master of Science Information Assurance and Cybersecurity degree program. He has a PhD in computer engineering and is a certified information system security professional, but we won't hold that against him. I'm just kidding. Liam, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
It's good to have you, Liam. Oh, I should also say this, because it wasn't in my teleprompter, this segment is sponsored by Fastly. You can visit securityweekly.com/Fastly to learn more. An interesting bit of history, right? Fastly acquired Signal Sciences. Signal Sciences was a sponsor on the show back when they were just Signal Sciences, now part of Fastly. So clearly, Fastly has good taste, is what I'm saying. So Liam, how'd you get your start in information security?
Oh boy, I have to go back. I mean, I started actually in multimedia and researching that field, and was looking at how to retrieve specific images from really large collections. That was my PhD research. So the way we did it was we looked at how the human brain works and vision works, and the very first few milliseconds of what happens when you perceive something, identify motion and structure and color, and then use that to teach computers how to more accurately retrieve images that were more relevant to user queries. And from there, I kind of used that foundation, that background in machine learning and working with large repositories of information to really get into security. I think starting with biometrics, that was like my first pivot, and I really love that applied part of it. And then I went more broadly into security, looking at network security, application security, security services. Let me spend time in both academia and for the past while in industry.
And you also, did you study AI at all, or just in school, like officially, or you're nodding your head yes already? Okay, sorry.
Well, it's interesting, right? When I was in school, right, there were a lot of subjects that were AI but had different names, right? Computer vision, for example, image retrieval, information retrieval, right? These machine learning. These all are applications of AI, and I had the AI class as well.
Nice. So, and you spoke on generative AI and its security implications at RSA this year. What led up to this? I'm always interested, because obviously, like, you gave the talk, you could give the talk again, but I'm always interested, having given some talks myself, like, what leads into the talk? Because we all have these like different experiences that lead us to go, oh, I'm going to create a talk about it.
Yeah, it was interesting. Back when I proposed that talk, there was definitely a lot of interest in generative AI and using it. But between when I proposed it and when I gave the talk, it absolutely exploded. Right, there was a massive amount more attention given to it, and the field started moving so quickly. To the point where every time I'd go in to revise my talk, I'd have to bring in new material, new things that were released. I think leading up to it, I started to see things like precursors to ChatGPT and others being used more and more, and sometimes without restraint. And there's actually things we need to consider in the enterprise, right? We're sending our information out to a third-party system. We need to apply the right level of trust and scrutiny to the content we get back. So I really wanted to highlight this for the community.
Liam, how would you define generative AI?
It's AI that creates stuff, or is that can create new content.
It's very, very, very simply just that, right? How do we get better at prompt engineering? Help us out. Because I struggle. I suck at asking ChatGPT questions. And I think it's some of that give and take with this form of AI, right? Like, the better you pose the question, the better the answer is. I suppose it's like real life. Hopefully I'm doing an okay job of asking you questions.
Well, I think when we talk, so you mentioned ChatGPT, right? And which is incredibly popular and massively impactful. And mentioned prompt engineering. I think that interface, that chat interface itself is really intriguing, right? It's very useful. It's something that we all know how to use. Maybe we're not the best at it, I do think that you can get much better answers if you try to iterate, try to work with the system. So ask it a question, get a response, and well, what do you like about the response? What's missing? Where does it need to improve? Give that feedback to the system, have it do a few iterations. That usually improves the output a good amount.
And it's learning as it goes, but there's some context to that, especially with ChatGPT, right?
Yeah, it can take context, can take the past, up to a certain capacity of your conversation, and use that to provide better answers.
Is the security and privacy implications about what data we're giving the AI, or is it also a component of how it interprets it and what data it spits back? Is it both?
It is both. So, I think we step back and think about, well, how is this thing generating answers, right? How is it trained? And this doesn't apply just to ChatGPT, but I think we'll see many vendors with their own systems that were each trained individually. Was that training data, which was massive, was it reliable? Was it legally available to train? There's some litigation right now around that. I think that is an interesting question. Was that data biased in any way, even unknown to the company that offers the model? Starting from the training data, that's going to affect all the output and the quality and reliability of the output. So that is part of it. Can that has that data been biased in some way? And then the other part is the output. In some cases, right, these systems can hallucinate output, make up things, and it sounds very, very convincing because that's its job, to create text that's completely convincing, but it's just not true.
Yeah, but one of the other non-cybersecurity podcasts I listen to has one of these AI engines trained on their podcast data, such that you can ask it questions. And I thought it was a neat thing. I used it a couple times, and then I didn't. But obviously, I still listen to the show. Not obviously, but I do still listen to the show. And the host comes on and says, "Hey, check out our new AI chat feature." And if it says that my mom smokes crack, ignore that, but tell me if it happens again, because we had that problem. And that's an example of a hallucination, right? Yeah. I mean, maybe, potentially. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, there have even been cases of it using real people's names and, famous people, really notable ones, and saying, well, they accomplished this, or they wrote this paper, and the accomplishment or the paper is completely fabricated, even though the person is real. So it can get pretty messy.
Right. Mandy, you have a question?
Oh, I have a few. Actually, first off, when thinking about the hallucinations like that, it makes me think a lot about either very young children, as they just make up stories and answer things, where people, as they're going into dementia and Alzheimer's, just say, oh, yes, of course, my son is an astronaut and has also done this and this and this. But I was curious for your definition, when you look at deepfakes, and especially the generative AI developed deepfakes, do you classify that as part of social engineering, or do you put it more into actual technical cybersecurity risk?
Yeah, sorry, man. Some of your question cut out, but could someone else repeat the question for me? I couldn't hear all of it.
Man, do you want to try again?
Sure. So one question was on deepfakes. Do you classify that as part of social engineering, or because it uses generative AI as part of technical cybersecurity risk?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably both, right? The social engineering aspect is quite interesting, and I think that part is a bit scary, right? Where you can train, right? You don't need to just generate text with generative AI. You can generate audio, images, videos, put them all together and create very convincing models based on real people. So I think it's quite a broad threat that would fall into multiple domains.
Where do you see the use cases for generative AI in security today, Liam?
I think there's a lot of use cases in security, and security operations teams can really put this to good use and be more efficient. Even asking simple things. Write a regular expression to detect certain types of IP addresses, or how would I write a Splunk query to detect logon failures? Right, that can give you the answer right away, but can also create, say, exploit payloads that you could use to potentially test different parts of your system. One other example is ask it to create a security policy about the usage of generative AI itself. You can get started that way too.
Yeah, it's interesting, Liam. I think I know Aaron's trying to use it for some creative stuff. I don't have great luck using it for more of the creative stuff, but if I ask it to generate code, it seems to be, I'm like, that's way better than Stack Overflow, I think. Well, in Stack Overflow, you got to make sure you're copying the answers, not the questions. As long as you do that, I still think ChatGPT is a higher quality. But what's the reason behind that, do you think?
Well, ChatGPT just has a massive source of input, right? A huge training data set that can use, where it has multiple examples. Code is interesting, and I think the thing to be aware of there is, just like code from any source, should be checked for security vulnerabilities, right? The ChatGPT, GitHub Copilot, although the capabilities change all the time, right? In the past, they've been shown to create code that has, say, SQL injection vulnerabilities, buffer overflows, other vulnerabilities. So just need to be careful, like with code from any other source.
Do you recommend that you're... Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead, Aaron.
Oh, what I was going to say is, all the code that I've written using ChatGPT, I find that it's very good at commenting the code, better than most coders that I've worked with. Has anybody else find that?
Well, I mean, that's not saying much, Aaron. No, experience.
Of course not. We've seen your code, Paul. It's very colorful.
And the comments usually have a lot of curse words, too.
It sounds like last week's Paul Security Weekly that you weren't lucky enough to be on.
Right. Was there a question there for Liam? Sorry, we got sidetracked. And I was wondering if ChatGPT could create code with comments that use curse words. I'm sure it could be trained for that, right? It just needs to look at my source code, and then it's trained. Liam, do you recommend that how do you recommend within your own organization that folks on your team start using? Do you recommend they use ChatGPT, and if so, how? Or similar tools?
I think, right. I think that question is, the answer is specific to each organization. Personally, I would treat it like any other third-party tool where you're sending information to, right? You may want to be cautious about confidential information, certainly customer information, company-specific information, because it can be used to improve the model. It's very different from, say, filling in a search box, where what you enter in the search is not going to appear in future searches, ideally.
So they tell me.
Generative AI, the queries are fair game. So it's important to be careful with that.
You're like, asking it to sort this list of social security numbers probably isn't a great idea. As a really bad example. Sam, sorry, did you have questions?
Oh, no.
I know you love this topic, so you're soaking it all in.
I do. I just wonder what you guys are doing, because I never got any code that would run out of ChatGPT.
Oh, we didn't say it would run. I mean...
Sam, that's because you're like every user and you don't know how to ask the right questions.
Evidently. It must be my fault. The computer
it can't
is
be
perfect.
The machine's fault. It's binary.
That must be it, yeah.
Sorry, Aaron, you had a question?
Yeah, I do. if the fact that it's obviously been shown that AI has bias, will it be a generational change, or do we need it to have an opinion?
That's a very interesting question. It's a challenging one. Just how do we handle bias in these? When these tools become so widespread and integrated into everything else we do, how do we handle that bias? I don't have a simple answer for that, but I do think that we need to be aware that this is certainly possible and likely that there will be biases in different ways, and it may make itself into all kinds of things that we create.
And what about not just a bias, but actually having an opinion, that if you ask a question and it comes back, sorry, I'm AI, but I don't have an opinion on that. Mm-hmm. Do you see uses of AI actually having an opinion?
I see uses of AI having an opinion. There's probably certainly uses of it, and good reasons why. Some of the most popular systems today try to not provide those opinions. That's another tricky one. I could see cases where we have really focused systems, where we have a better chance to describe the breadth of the behavior of them, where opinions could be more useful. But for the more general systems that want to reach everyone, having opinions may not line up with the goals, be it distribution or safety of the system.
Final question from me. Is it possible, is there an open source version at the moment that I can actually give it my own content so that I can have my own AI with my own data set?
There are several open source projects, even some from some big vendors. So these are out there. Yeah,
that's pretty
the
cool.
training would be very expensive, though, right?
Well, that's the tricky part, right? The training is expensive, although I suppose that expensive is relative, and depends, of course, on the size of the training set and then how much fidelity you want in the answers. So
also, Liam, it depends on whose computers you're running it on too. I mean, someone else's computers are usually free. Just kidding. I'm not suggesting that you break into other people's computer. That would be a violation. Title 18. Anyway, carry on.
And also, how much data would you need? I mean, ChatGPT is trained on an incredible pile of data, right?
Oh yeah. ChatGPT, GPT-3, and of course GPT-4 have massive data sets that they've been trained on. But if you want something for a different goal, odds are you don't need that much data if you have a really focused objective.
Liam, go ahead, Sam. Sorry.
No, I'm thinking focused objectives are where it's at. I mean, I'm thinking the reason ChatGPT doesn't write good code is because it's the all-purpose text generator for everything, and that really doesn't make any sense. There ought to be a code-generating AI trained just on code, perhaps only on code in one language, and then it would be a lot better.
Perhaps. I mean, we had GitHub Copilot years ago, right? That came out that was focused on that use case, and that has been very effective. I think it's there are benefits and drawbacks. I mean, with GPT-3 and GPT-4, we saw emergent behavior, its ability to provide answers not just in English but in multiple languages, because it had such a large training set and was able to make these other inferences. But yeah, I tend to agree with you that focused applications could be may have better quality results there.
After ChatGPT was sort of given curated learning, what changes have we seen since it was connected to the internet?
Yeah, it's been interesting to see this in real time, and not just ChatGPT, but Bing system and others. It seems every week, every few weeks, we get a pretty high profile something from it, like showing its whole prompt and that being corrected, or ChatGPT providing advice on topics that it will no longer provide guidance on, or ways to get around ChatGPT's prompt restrictions that are then patched, kind of like whack-a-mole. Those are the types of changes we've seen pretty consistently.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. What kind of defense stops prompt injection? The current defenses seem to be incredibly weak, like pattern matching input filtering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the nature of these systems, that they are probabilistic, that you're not guaranteed any particular output, that you're likely to get different output every time, not identical output, and it implies for the input, right? Multiple ways out. Are there multiple ways to get it to express the behavior that you're trying to? And so far, the answer is yes, right? Which is why the approaches haven't been airtight. That pattern matching hasn't been that effective, because you can play around with the prompt, and of course, there's a lot of interest in this, and effectively, people can keep trying different prompts to get the result that they're looking for.
So there's no security product or security technique yet to protect your AI.
That is a very absolute statement, but I would.
Is there something you can buy, or something
that it's an open challenge?
Yeah, but I agree with Liam. It sounds like there's research to be done, and that research hinges on like creative ways to protect the prompt injection, prevent it from creating something that's malicious. But also, it's going to be that chicken and egg problem, much like malware and privilege escalation. The attackers are going to figure out ways around that. We're just going to keep kind of going back and forth. So I agree, there's no like absolute kind of statement where there's a point in time that we reach where attackers aren't able to abuse it. Also, I think, Leo, I'm curious your thoughts on this. Like, how likely is it that attackers just build their own generative AI systems? And again, it kind of, I was joking about before, they can use other people's computers, because they already use other people's computers to generate their own, and then have it generate malware. I think that's already happening. I think I read something that's already happening, right?
Well, you can use Gen AI to create malware, right? That has happened, and you can use it to create variations on malware, or multiple code examples that do the same thing. So yeah, that we are seeing. As for if attackers will create their own system, I don't know if they need to, if they can use someone else's, like you said. I think if it makes economic sense, we might see that.
I see an underground using generative AI to create polymorphic malware, right? Polymorphic is the term. I think we used to call it polymorphic shellcode, and it was more about shellcode, right? And I can see AI systems such as this being very, as you said before, if you ask it the similar or same question, you get different answers. That's perfect for creating variations of things. The model lends itself. Where do you see this going, Liam, in terms of the evolution? And I really I want to clarify that question, and that we get feedback. It seems when we talk about this topic, especially after a couple of drinks, we pull from science fiction, because that's what we know. I didn't go to school to study this particular topic. We pull from science fiction, and some people are suggesting that we get away from that in talking about the future of where this is going. So, in a more realistic sense than we've phrased it previously, Liam, where are we going with this? How do you see this iterating?
Yeah, that's interesting. Of course, you mentioned science fiction. I like Star Trek, but when you see some of that and how they interact with the computer there, maybe we're already beyond that. So that's an interesting topic on its own. Look, I think that there are practical applications for large language models and generative AI, and I think we will see it in pretty much every industry, right? There will be applications for it. That's really broad. Is it going to completely change everything we do, or will it be more like a tool that lets us do things more quickly? I tend to lean on the side of the latter, that will make things that we do today better. But it'll be fun to see.
I
Can you
agree.
guess what
I
the
agree.
killer app might be?
But I go back to my previous example of when they created the first spreadsheet software. I was like, accountants are going to be out of a job. It turns out like that just helped them do their job better. I'll give you a more recent example, and Aaron, this will tie into our previous conversation about social media. So I use, let's see, I'll limit it to 3 tools to do that today. One, I can go to a YouTube video. I can use a plugin for my browser. It's like YouTube to Chat GPT, I think is the name of it. It takes the transcript from your YouTube video and creates a summary. Uses Chat GPT to create a summary. I think that works. It works good enough right now. Then Buffer, the social media tool that I use, you can like make a post and then use AI and it will help you with that. Or you can give it an image and it'll help you create a description, and you have a certain number of credits with it, right? So they're trying that one I haven't experimented too much with, but they're trying to use it as a tool to improve their platform. The clipping tool that I use is another site. That is amazing. That actually amazes me. I give it an hour video clip and it creates 40 clips for me and like does a really good job of it. Creates the transcript, the whole thing. I mean, the transcripts need light editing, but having been doing this for 18 years, I can say that's light years ahead of anything that I've used in the past to help me automate, my workflow when I talk about working with media and social media. So I think that backs up your point, Liam, of these are tools that are going to help us in our daily, make our jobs easier.
So
Agree. Yeah, I think those are great examples, and we're seeing those type of uses in like just such a broad set of different industries.
Yeah. Go ahead,
but
Mandy.
You can't guess which one is really going to hit, eh? Because tech revolutions typically have a killer app.
Yeah. But I think it's an augmentation. I think you got to have a pretty good app, right, in order to have the AI help you get to the next level. I don't see it today anyway being where the AI thing is the thing that pushes your app forward in all cases. But the video clipping tool, maybe that's one that might fall in that category, because I think it is about the algorithm and the software that they're using. Mandy?
Yeah, Liam, I have about 3 questions, and it's fascinating to me because you got to spend time doing what a lot of us don't. You got to spend more dedicated time on AI, large language models, machine learning. And so I do have several questions that I would love your opinion on. With when you think of like our audience, a broad range of security practitioners, what is something that comes to your mind as a tool or an application of AI that you go, you know what, I wish more people knew this?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think when I think a lot about the Security Operations Center and what they do, and being able to what I'm looking forward to being able to pull in different sources, different grab the context of an interesting event, draft a report, create the relevant graphs. I think is close, and I'm very excited to start seeing that.
Okay. And then for your take, like on AI being used maliciously and by bad actors, is there one particular thing that just constantly comes up to you as you're like, I think that would be the worst thing? Is that they are using generative AI to create malicious code faster? Or is there something else that you think of as this is the biggest problem that they should be looking at?
Well, one problem that we've had for a very long time. We spoke about kind of malicious code and exploit payloads, but we also mentioned phishing, and it will be impacted by this. There are new opportunities for attackers. And I think in particular with spear phishing, right, you can craft and really scale something that's very tailored to individuals. This is just going to create more challenges as we keep on educating users about phishing and related attacks.
Okay. And then the third thing is just when you look, again, a broad view of what you have had exposure to, what do you feel is something that, most people just get wrong in how they conceptualize about AI or machine learning or large language models?
Oh, yeah, interesting question. I think we perhaps give more trust to the answers than we always should, right? We mentioned hallucinations and coming up with things, right? The text that's created really needs to be reviewed and needs to be researched and cross-referenced and checked if that's the nature of the text, because it could just be it could be real, it could be made up. There's no guarantee, and that's one point that I would really want to impress on users of these tools.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Sense.
It's really like human nature to want to accept an answer from something, right? I think our initial reaction as humans is to want to conform. Even some of like us hackers too. Like the initial thing in humans is we want to conform and we want to kind of go with the flow in the branch. And so when the generative AI system gives us an answer, we want to believe, right? X-Files, right? We want to believe, but we also want to question those answers and validate it as well. I was also thinking, we were talking about the Conor McGregor documentary, and it's interesting how it relates to what I just said, because I noticed this too, but didn't actually fully think it through, and certainly wasn't able to verbalize it. But they said, when Conor is being interviewed in any kind of setting, he has a natural ability to not go along with like the thread of questioning. Like if they asked him a question, most of us would do the nice thing and like try and answer the question. He was able to work outside that thread the entire time and just be like, no, I'm gonna win. And like no matter what the question was, he had like his own thread and that's what he was doing. And it was really, I didn't like I picked up on that, but not enough to like be able to explain it to someone else until listening to another podcast that was talking about it. And I think that's the kind of way we need to think when we interact with these systems, right? And in all of the internet, really, is to validate and question and not kind of fall into that thread, kind of have your own agenda kind of thing. Liam, I wanted to transition, and I'm curious to see in this transition, like how AI might play, or machine learning and these technologies might play into some of the things that Fastly is doing today with respects to WAF and DDoS and bot detection. Because I think all three of those areas really present a unique opportunity to integrate this new technology. And I think Fastly is certainly one of the companies on my list they're constantly innovating in these areas.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I'll say it's definitely early days, and this is going to look very different 6 months from now, a year from now. But yeah, at Fastly we're really concerned with scale, with speed, and also the quality of the response. So you mentioned bots. Right? That's a really interesting area where the attacks are more bespoke, sometimes really targeted at one property. I think there could be applications there for either detecting or perhaps even how we respond to bots. With more general like DDoS or web application security, for the SOC, like I mentioned before, I think there's a number of things that we can use these tools to really help make sure that when we do an investigation, we're following all the right leads and have all the right context right there.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think you're correct, Liam, in that it's two different things. Bot detection is a very different problem from collecting a lot of data to combat the DDoS and protecting a web application from other threats other than the actual bot detection, right? So to kind of hone in on bot detection, what do we mean? We haven't talked about it in a while. What do we mean by bot detection, and what are some of the modern methods that are in use today to essentially, I mean, it's separating, right, a human from a computer program?
Yeah, and it's even more than that, right? You have that first level human from automated or bot or computer program, but then when we get to that program, right, is it a malicious bot, or is it actually one that you really want visiting your application, your website, and maybe even giving priority, or is it a search engine crawler or something you really want there, right? That making that distinction, what that bot is up to, is well, it's been a challenge for a long time. And I think with bots, continue to see these threats. It's really top of mind for Fastly customers as well. So being able to provide the right tools to detect different kinds of bots, that's really what we're looking at Fastly.
What's the most common type of bot or use case for a bot? Because it's different in if you go across social media, tech, and then you go to finance or you go to healthcare, right? All the bots are very different. What are some of the more common kind of use cases?
Yeah, it really does depend, in particular on like industry vertical. Right? You go e-commerce versus banking, versus a different industry might be different. One just kind of first one that popped in mind in terms of really common bot is credential stuffing, login bots, right? Trying to get into your system that way. That one really affects a lot of different customers, a lot of different industries.
On the e-commerce side, though, do you still see a really this kind of uptick in bots that are used for purchasing goods? I think we saw a huge amount of those during the pandemic when the supply chain was extremely stressed, to put it lightly, and getting certain goods, you basically needed a bot. And it was super frustrating if you were someone that, I mean, a lot of us have the capabilities to do that, right? On the show and listening, like we can create bots, but there's a moral and ethical decision. Should I do that? But graphics cards are an example.
Yeah.
So, I mean, do we still see that kind of uptick today?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look at like the recent Taylor Swift ticket sale, right? Which got a huge amount of attention. We definitely see that, and it's a really tricky problem, right? Because there's an economic incentive there,
right?
To obtain these things, as you can really profit from them, and then normal users just really have very little chance to get these at the retail price right when they're available. Because how can you compete with automated bots that have been refined? It's a very tricky problem, and one that we're of course still seeing more and more.
But that's a huge scale too, which makes it super complex. I gotta imagine there's a difference in scale between bots that are attacking finance, as an example, for credential stuffing, versus bots that are dealing with a ticket sale, which is a time-sensitive thing and often an enormous amount of volume at a certain given time.
Yeah, certainly you have this huge spike in requests right when things go on sale.
Do you push the bot detection down to the browser level yet, or is that something that you're still exploring? I know that it's like a hot debate, like we're getting like really nerdy and very specific into this one area, but having delved into this area before, right, there was kind of like a couple of camps that are like, we can protect it on the perimeter and on the application side, and there's other camps that are like, well, we can modify your application inside JavaScript typically so that the bot detection gets pushed down into the browser. But the browser is also like the Mos Eisley of the web application because it's outside of your control, and that's a double-edged sword as well. So, like, where do you fall on these technologies, Liam?
Yeah. I mean, we're looking into the breadth of that, but really we're Fastly's platforms at the edge, right? We're looking at requests coming in. I think that's where we see the most, the place where we can help the most right now.
Yeah, and that's good in between. I don't want to say middle ground because I don't want to take anything away from it, right? But like it's not on the back end, on the web or the database side, but it's not on the browser side. Putting on the edge is that mediator in the middle. That's kind of that middle ground for it.
Yeah, and I think it's such a broad and varied problem, right? That there are use cases that benefit from all types of approaches.
Going to larger data sets and usage of AI and machine learning, I guess WAF and DDoS are somewhat similar, but also very different problems to deal with. So let's tackle DDoS quickly first. That's still a very specific set of clients, right? That have to invest that much in DDoS, or like when they come to you, what's their challenge?
DDoS, actually, it's fairly broad, and it's actually been top of mind for a good amount of our customers. Really, not just mitigating DDoS, but getting insight, getting visibility into it. So knowing that an attack occurred, knowing everything you can about it, and trying to learn from that attack has been an area of focus for us.
I think that's spot on, because 20 years ago, when I worked at the university, the indicator, before we had better tools, the indicator was if there was some kind of denial of service condition, whether it was a DDoS attack, whether it was just some other kind of denial of service condition, it was our phones are ringing because people can't get to the internet, right? Or like, I can't get to the internet, so something's happening. It was a lot of work. I mean, and tools got better in the past 20 years. Certainly 20 years ago, it was a lot of work to go, what's going on? How do we pinpoint? How do we get that telemetry to triage the problem?
Yeah, I agree. And so that's what we've been looking at right now.
Now we go to WAF. I thought that the story behind Signal Sciences was amazing. So how has that been carried forward at Fastly on the WAF side?
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun. It's now a few years where we've been integrating Signal Sciences, WAF, and Next Gen WAF and Fastly. The WAF, it's not a mod security WAF, so it uses what we call smart parse. So it works differently than a lot of other WAFs out there. And what we've done most recently is integrate with our edge. So now it's available, on the Fastly edge, easy to set up, and can run at that scale.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the next evolution, because I think that back in the day, if I wanted some WAF or the web application firewall, it was something I had to configure and be really hands-on with. Now I feel like I can go to hyperscalers and other providers or Fastly, and that kind of just happens for me now. I know, like, where I'm hosting my websites, they do some cool stuff that if someone tries to scan it, or, this like pretty large swath of attacks, like I basically don't have to worry about anymore, which is awesome for me, because I can then focus on the things that I should be focusing on. I can focus on the deeper security aspects, making sure my code is good, making sure I have good telemetry, making sure that inside the application I'm putting protections. I don't have to worry about that stuff at the edge, the perimeter, and things like that. That's got to be part of the story for your WAF, right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's like one of the key benefits of the way that the Fastly WAF works is you don't need to spend a lot of time configuring it. The vast majority of our customers they're in blocking mode. They don't need lengthy training runs. It can understand what to block very quickly, and then you can get about doing what your business actually does.
Right, because it's based on known parameters, based on data analysis, not based on regex. Because
that's right. Yeah, yeah. We'll evaluate the request coming in and actually see how it will the result of it before deciding whether to pass it on or not.
I think regex is one of those things where, like, if you have a problem and you're solving it with regex, you have two problems. You feel free to use that with your potential customers. Right? No, I think that's great. So do you also have a services as well? Because we talked about how, like, I like to hone in my security strategy, and I think there's still different schools of thought, right? But I think a lot of that thinking is somewhat outdated, in that if I can outsource pieces of my security architecture, and I do that in a smart way, I get to focus on the things that matter more, that I have more control over, that I can dive deeper into. How do I protect the internals of my application, do some real hardening, and get some of those perimeter things? You have a service that helps people with that as well.
Yeah. We launched a service fairly recently in February, and it's the Fastly managed security service. So for the vast majority of our customers will manage the WAF themselves, right? It's easy to manage, doesn't take a lot of time. But there are customers that, for a variety of reasons, large customers, small customers in between, that do want us, Fastly, to manage their web application security for them. So their WAF, DDoS, bots, rate limiting, and this has been really exciting. We have a global SOC that we make available for customers, and for those that want it, we will monitor those services and take proactive action if needed. Mitigate the event, write the report. It's been pretty exciting for Fastly.
Yeah, because I think it helps teams put the focus where it needs to be. I want teams, if I'm responsible for hundreds of web applications, I want teams focused on really great unit testing, really great security checks, giving them the time to work together with security and developers to create those really good security checks inside the application, to test that stuff before it pushes out, not have them worried about, how do I tune my WAF? How do I make sure bots aren't doing this or the other thing, right? Here's a snippet of code. It does the bot detection for you. Move on. I'd rather see them have good unit testing and good code reviews and all that stuff.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of uses like that, like for DevOps teams, where they don't need to spend not just doing that, but also the initial triage, right? And determining if something is actionable, right? We take care of that for them, which saves them time. But we've also seen really large enterprises that have full SOCs of their own that still want to use our service to gain that expertise, and also kind of shops at just one person. One example was one where it was one person, and they were under a prolonged attack that lasted days, and so we were able to help them and even let them sleep while we handled the attack.
And I think you also made it sound like, Liam, those attacks are more prevalent today, right? I was kind of like, DDoS attacks, like, there's somewhat smaller subset of enterprises that have to deal with that now, but you made it sound like it was a little more wider scale than that. And I think that's what motivates attackers for a DDoS attack? Certainly there's more tools and resources at their disposal than there was, say, 20 years ago.
No, there's a lot of motivation for DDoS, right? Yeah, there is that kind of nuisance motivation, but there are economic ones. Or it really depends on the target and who is executing the attack. I mean, attacks can range from individuals all the way to nation states. So there's no limit to the motivations for them.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't think you need to be a big, large enterprise or larger company, like a gaming company has a lot to lose if they're about to launch a new video game and someone's taking out their servers. Certainly that's a concern for them. But you mentioned, sometimes I think you mentioned the financial motive. If you're a small firm, but you're managing billions of dollars, is always the example I come back to. Not being able to do your job, it could cost you money. So do you see a lot of DDoS for ransom? Is that increasing?
DDoS for ransom. Actually, that one I'm not sure. I mean, we certainly still see it occurring. If it's increasing, that one I'm actually not sure about. But one other concern with DDoS is not just the DDoS attack, but is there something else happening?
Yeah.
Maybe a much more focused attack while you're looking at this DDoS as well.
I think we always theorized about that, but then I heard a lot more real world stories about the misdirection in attacks. I think it was something we theorized about years ago, but then I was like, oh no, that's actually a real thing.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely an interesting area.
Anyone have more questions for Liam before we get to Mandy?
I do. I am very curious. So whenever you started switching from understanding was it the visual stimulations, what was going on neurologically with people, and started switching over to security, what was something that you fell in love with or fell into a rabbit hole with, or that just made you hyper-focus on security?
Yeah, was really interesting, and was like even back when I was doing research, right? There were projects there that were applications of it in the security domain. I think that's really what pulled me there, was that this theoretical work, and here was this really exciting growing industry where I could apply it in all types of different ways. So yeah, started with biometrics, and I remember getting handed these floppy disks with some fairly old code about how to implement fingerprint recognition, and that really started me down that rabbit hole. This is really interesting. There's ways to improve it, and other ways that we can pivot and scale and apply to all types of different things. So seeing these real world uses was absolutely fascinating for me.
Okay. Nice. And that makes me think about one of the 5 questions that Paul will ask at the end. Very curious on.
Which we're going to ask now. Liam, are you ready to play 5 questions with Security Weekly? Don't look concerned. There are 5 really silly questions. There's no right or wrong answer.
Okay.
3 words to describe yourself.
3 words to describe myself. I wasn't ready for this. 3 words to describe myself. Curious, cautious, and I really wasn't ready for this. Unprepared.
If you were a serial killer, what would be your weapon of choice?
I also wasn't ready for that one. I was a serial killer. What would be my weapon of choice? Vehicle.
If you wrote a book about yourself, what would the title be?
I feel like these questions actually require like a lot of time to think in depth, but on the fly,
off the cuff. Everyone does it off the cuff.
Probably be what I did between watching hockey games.
What is your favorite hacker movie?
Favorite hacker movie? There's a lot. You know what? I don't know if it's a hacker movie. It's definitely a tech movie that I keep coming back to. It's called Pirates of Silicon Valley.
Oh, I love that one. It's a great movie. It's awesome. It is one of my favorites. Choose 2 celebrities to be your parents.
2 celebrities to be my parents.
Alive, dead, fictional, or otherwise.
Boy, I'm not quite sure how to answer that.
Can be anyone from movies, TV.
Choose one that would get you into the best hockey games. Who would you want as your dad to get you into the best hockey games?
I'll go with scientists. I'll go with Marie Curie and Albert Einstein.
Very nice. Liam, thank you so much for appearing on this episode of Paul Security Weekly.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
With that, we'll take a short break and come back with the security news. Stay tuned.